Hello, I'm Dr. Peter Murano, and I'm pleased to be with you today to discuss the downstream effects of AMPK and mTOR. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Consult a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your diet, exercise, fasting, or supplement use. The slide that will be discussed is shown here, and the title is Key Downstream Molecular Messengers of AMPK and mTOR. And you see below that 6 molecules that are listed along with their functions. And down toward the bottom of the chart, we see 4 of the 6 are critical for AMPK repair days, whereas 2 are critical for mTOR growth days. And then finally at the very bottom, why all of this matters. So we'll be discussing all of the material, all of the information on this chart next. Now the chart is organized to show what happens downstream after AMPK or mTOR is activated. The left side of the chart in the blue lettering highlights the molecules, the molecular messengers that are emphasized when AMPK and mTOR are active. Signals associated with repair, metabolic health, and efficiency, and also with building strength and structural adaptation. Each row represents a single molecular messenger. The first column names it, and the second column briefly describes its function. The purpose of the figure is not to turn you into a molecular biologist. It is to show that AMPK and mTOR work by activating different sets of messengers at different times, and that when those messengers are separated, or messages are separated, I should say, repair on some days, building on others, the body adapts more cleanly and efficiently, all of which is highly desirable for the aging body. The chart works well as a visual way of showing why the AMPK-mTOR method works, not simply that it works. I want us to get a sense here that as we examine the chart, we notice that AMPK and mTOR do not carry out repair or growth directly themselves. Instead, they sit upstream in the cell's decision-making hierarchy, functioning as upstream regulators, sensing conditions and issuing instructions. The recipients of those instructions lie downstream of AMPK and mTOR and are those 6 molecular messengers. These 6 molecules listed in the chart, and you see them there, ACC, 4E, EP1, GLUT4, PGC1 alpha, P70S6 kinase, and ULK1 are all downstream messengers. They execute tasks only after receiving a clear signal from the 2 upstream controllers, AMPK and mTOR. It's time now to dig a bit deeper into the specifics of these molecular messengers and their functions relative to AMPK and mTOR. And I'm not necessarily going to discuss them in the order in which they occur in the chart. This will force you to do some searching visually and mentally as I go through them, and that's a good exercise for you. Let me start off by saying that when AMPK becomes active, it reflects a particular cellular environment, one that is characterized by energetic stress or deliberate restraint, lower calorie availability, for instance, endurance-type exercise, or metabolic challenge. In this state, AMPK is upregulated, meaning its signaling activity increases. And once active, AMPK sends instructions downstream that prioritize maintenance and efficiency over building, over construction. One of its key downstream targets is, let's pick ULK1, which AMPK activates to initiate something very critical, autophagy, the cell's internal cleanup and recycling process. This allows damaged cellular components and accumulated debris to be cleared away, restoring cellular integrity. At the same time, AMPK upregulates PGC1 alpha, a transcriptional coactivator that drives mitochondrial biogenesis and improvement. The result is not more tissue, but better functioning tissue, cells that can produce energy more efficiently and resist fatigue. AMPK also adds phosphate groups, or phosphorylates, and inhibits ACC, effectively downregulating fat storage pathways and making stored fat more accessible for oxidation. So the body is going to burn fat. GLUT4 activity is enhanced as well, improving glucose transport into muscle and increasing insulin sensitivity. Collectively, these downstream effects represent a coordinated shift toward repair, conservation, and metabolic health. Growth is not the goal here. Functionality is. By contrast, when mTOR is activated, the cellular environment signals abundance, adequate calories, sufficient protein, and mechanical load from resistance training, all of which act upstream to upregulate mTOR activity, particularly through the mTOR-C1 complex. Once mTOR is engaged, it sends a different set of instructions downstream compared to AMPK, instructions that favor construction rather than cleanup. P70S6 kinase becomes active, increasing ribosomal activity and accelerating something very crucial, MPS, or muscle protein synthesis. At the same time, mTOR regulates 4E-BP1 in a way that permits translation to proceed efficiently. These downstream messengers convert nutrient availability and training stress into tangible outcomes that include muscle growth, strength gains, and maintenance of bone and structural tissue. Crucially, mTOR activation also suppresses autophagy and AMPK-mediated conservation pathways. This suppression is not pathological at all. It is necessary. Building new tissue requires that the cell commit resources fully to synthesis rather than simultaneously dismantling components. In this sense, mTOR signaling is not merely about growth, it is about decisiveness. The intricate system of regulation and signaling is working without us giving it any thought. But the important thing to realize is we can intentionally activate each side of the coin, AMPK and mTOR. Yes, intentionally and strategically, to maximize our strength and longevity as we age. Now that we have examined AMPK's and mTOR's downstream molecular messengers and their functions, let's move down the chart. Here we see the representation of what I refer to as AMPK days and mTOR days in my AMPK-mTOR method. You can see which specific messengers are functioning in each day type. Notice especially that this creates separation of AMPK's and mTOR's signaling, and this is so very critical to accomplish as we get into our later years. Let's look together at the last slide now. It says why this matters. If repair signals and growth signals are simultaneously activated, especially in older adults, as we've said, the messages blur and desirable outcomes are diminished. The AMPK-mTOR method works because it activates repair signaling on AMPK days, and it activates growth signaling on mTOR days. This allows each system to complete its job efficiently and effectively. So let's put it all together in a simple statement. Clear upstream control leads to coherent downstream execution, allowing metabolic health, strength, and longevity to reinforce one another instead of compete. That clarity, more than any single molecule that we have discussed, is the true mechanism underlying the AMPK mTOR method. Now, one important point to realize before we conclude is that we can actually negatively affect this fine-tuned system by causing signal interference. This happens when we have AMPK and mTOR both trying to activate and function at the same time. If AMPK and mTOR are simultaneously signaling, each neither fully on nor fully off, the downstream instructions that we have discussed become ambiguous. AMPK attempts to initiate autophagy and inhibit mTOR, while mTOR simultaneously attempts to suppress autophagy and drive protein synthesis. The downstream messengers receive conflicting phosphorylation signals, and neither repair nor growth proceeds optimally. Instead of execution, the system enters negotiation. The signal blurring becomes more pronounced as we age, as anabolic sensitivity declines and anabolic resistance increases, and baseline stress signaling also increases. The result? Slower recovery, diminished adaptation, and a sense that effort no longer produces proportional return. But the AMPK-mTOR method of alternating between AMPK and mTOR days works by restoring signal clarity. On repair days, AMPK is deliberately upregulated and mTOR activity is allowed to diminish. Downstream repair processes are given time to complete fully. And on build days, mTOR is clearly upregulated, AMPK signaling is then minimized, and anabolic pathways are allowed to run their course without interference. Each system is not only activated, but given its space to finish its job. The rhythm that emerges, repair followed by build, or build followed by repair, is not arbitrary or academic. It reflects the way human physiology has always adapted best, through alternating phases of consolidation and expansion. And with advancing age, this separation becomes more important, not less important. Now, my friends, I think I misspoke because there's another slide. Now, I'm speaking these words in the year 2026, and I was born in 1954. So I've spent years considering the challenges of aging, both personally and professionally. And I have critically thought about these AMPK and mTOR pathways, and I enjoy working with seniors who are interested in the benefits of strength training. Through it all, I've come to believe that growing old does not have to mean surrendering strength, vitality, or confidence. Much of what we experience as inevitable decline is often the result of confused signals, of asking the body to repair and build at the same time, and then wondering why neither process seems to work the way it once did, which gave me genuine optimism when I realized the confusion here is not irreversible, it is not final. By restoring clarity, and I mean signal clarity, by deliberately alternating periods of repair with periods of building, we can work with the body's natural design rather than fight it. This is what my AMPK-mTOR method is structured to achieve. It is not about chasing living forever or denying the realities of aging. It's about aging intelligently, respectfully, and with intention, so that metabolic health, strength, and longevity can not only coexist, but continue to reinforce one another and support a full, capable life in the years ahead.